Welcome to KernTax's Conversations That Matter. I'm Michael Turnipseed, Executive Director of KernTax. We hope you find these discussions to be informative and provide you with some insight you didn't have before. Today, our guest is Christian Clegg, Bakersfield's new city manager of all of 2.5 months. We welcome. Glad you joined us today.
Happy to be here.
Christian, you worked in Stockton since 2011. You helped their city solve their financial problems with their bankruptcy. You also created an innovative program that we'll want to talk about a little bit later about the Office of Violence Protection that reduced homicides and shootings tremendously in Stockton. And before Stockton, you worked at the city of Tacoma, Washington, and in Johnson County, Kansas. So you've covered a lot of geography.
Yeah, I've been a few places. It's helped give me a bit more perspective and round out my experience. I've made it a point to try and hold still, or I've been as long as I can each time. Some folks in this profession move around pretty quickly. I was in Stockton for 9 years and hope to leverage all of that experience for a long time here in Bakersfield as well.
Well, you had a lot of interesting experiences in Stockton that a lot of people don't have the opportunity of going through. And I think every experience we have affects what you do down the road. And so the more experiences you have, the more you're prepared for what the bumps in the road you hit moving forward. We've had several chat conversations that you've come to town. So for the people that are watching, who are you? And your family, your background, how did you get here, and why did you decide to be in city government or government management, and your background?
Yeah, good question. I think it's fair to let folks know that first and foremost, I am a husband and father. That comes before being a city manager. It's important to me. But I am a city manager and came into this profession very intentionally. I studied this as a specific path. I'll have to admit, I didn't grow up as a kid always dreaming I would become a city manager. But as I went through my educational experiences, I really wanted to pick a career that would, for me, have purpose. I wanted to go into public service to be able to give back. I targeted local government because I feel like you're closer to the community, closer to the people you serve. You're not stuck in the cogs of state or federal government. And also local government, is a little more nimble, a little more responsive than some of those larger government entities. And that was interesting and exciting to me to have some diversity of things to work on and make some big impacts. Really, my passion's about helping community. My experiences in Tacoma were really about pursuing first, a really great mentorship opportunity with a great city manager there at the time. They were working on creating a high performance organization with a specific model around high performance. And I got to watch and see that culture change effort and push towards high performance, and wanted to leverage those experiences. I saw an opportunity in Stockton to come be part of a new team that would be helping really build an organization from the ground up in trying to restructure a city that was in a lot of trouble. And so went there to leverage those experiences. It was an eyes wide open choice. I would admit though, when you think you know what you're getting into, you always find out there's more to the story. And so it was a tough assignment in Stockton. There was really a lot of work to do. It was a heavy lift. But through those experiences, I think over about a 7-8 year period, that city took on almost every big issue a city can, that typically would take on over maybe a 20 or 30 year period. And so I was able to experience and see all those big issues, as well as, it really taught me what things are truly important and what are not, how to set, clear priorities and, work towards those priorities. Because when you're facing that much, you have to pick some things and focus on them and move forward. And so Bakersfield, why Bakersfield? Why come here? On the personal side, it was definitely a quality of life choice for my family and I. We saw this as a family that matches the character, we saw this as a community that matches the character of our family, and a great opportunity to raise our young kids. So I have three younger children from 12 down to 5 in age, and come into a friendly, family-oriented community was a great opportunity for us. And then on the professional side, again, taking my experiences, particularly if you look at the contrast between Tacoma and Stockton, a high-performing organization, an organization in some trouble, leveraging those experiences to come to a community that has had good stability, and at the same point has some opportunities to make some modernization and some improvements, but also with a great moment in time to say what is the next chapter of this organization, specifically as a city as well as the community, and to come and be part of that cool journey as well.
Wow, because I noticed you're originally from Kansas, I think, right? You went to University of Kansas?
Well, I actually studied my graduate work in Kansas. I grew up mostly in the state of Utah, and
Oh,
then went to the Midwest to do my schooling, and then wanted to head back to the Western states, more family back this way.
well, you've covered a few miles on your travels then. Um, so when you got here and found us, and you can only study and do due diligence so deep, what has surprised you the most since March 2nd when you showed up for your first day at work?
A few things. First, the commitment of the city staff, and many public servants are very committed, but I've been very impressed and a little bit surprised at just how deep the commitment is of this city staff. I think, along with the city staff, the sort of the hometown passion that Bakersfield has. I'd heard about it, but when I came here and found that people truly are more friendly, people truly have a different perspective on life than much of California, and this community really cares about Bakersfield's identity and who we are. That was a surprise at how deep that really was. The other piece I would say is that I knew it was an organization that had been lean and was looking to grow its capacity. As I've taken a sharper look into the budgets and into the number of positions, this is a very lean organization. The number of positions compared to cities of like size and like operation, and the amounts of discretionary funds in their budgets, those. It was a surprise to me that it truly was even more lean than I had anticipated, even at doing my homework and knowing that it was a lean operation. I think that speaks to hard work and ingenuity of the organization, but it also does speak to some, deferred ability to, do other things as an organization. And then what has also surprised me, the last thing I'll say is how much opportunity there is tapped to tell our own story. I think the narrative about Bakersfield, and both regionally and in the state, has not been told by Bakersfield itself and Kern County itself. And I think that there's just a real untapped opportunity, and it surprised me how much of an opportunity there is, because there's really good stuff going on and really good thinking happening, that just needs to get daylighted.
A little self-promotion once in a while.
Yeah, you got to do it.
If you don't talk about it, really nobody else does, that's for sure. So how would you describe your leadership style then? You've been to obviously Tacoma versus Stockton, and now you're in Bakersfield. So tell us about how you plan to lead and we'll get the vision a little bit later, but how would you describe yourself as a leader?
I would say my leadership style is a facilitative leadership style. I view the role of the city manager to set vision. I mean, you mentioned a vision, but it's to set a vision and create an overall strategy. Of course, that is done with the city council and the vision that they have, but then taking that vision and discerning it for what is the staff direction. But once that strategy and vision is in place, I want to create the right culture and provide the right resources and the right direction for staff to be able to implement. But I'm not going to micromanage, and I'm not going to, be in the middle of every project. I want to create the scenario in which our staff can do good thinking and good work and let them do their good work. I don't feel like it's not my style, but two, it's not as productive to try and be in the middle of everything and really let folks do their good work. I think, I know the questions to ask. I'm not an expert on every detail, but I know the questions to ask. I know how to hold folks accountable, but I'd rather take that vision and productive approach and have lots of good people thinking ahead and doing good work. As I mentioned, productive, I really do like to stay positive and be collaborative and productive. I'd much rather start from a, how do we figure this out perspective than, whose fault is this perspective, and want to create that environment. We can be creative and innovative and move forward. And sometimes we're not going to get it right. Unfortunately, we try to, minimize those, but let's figure out what was the problem, fix it, make adjustments to make sure it doesn't happen again, and then let's move on. So again, I try to stay pretty positive and facilitate good work as opposed to trying to, be the driver of all the work. I want to be the catalyst for all the work.
Catalyst is a good word. I was going to bring up, I had this quote from Jack Welch, from CEO of GE. Good leaders create vision, articulate the vision, passionately own the vision, and relentlessly drive to its completion. And another quote was, culture drives great results. So what's your vision for Bakersfield to be in the next 3 to 5 years and maybe longer term?
That's a great question. I would draw a distinction first between vision for the community and the city as a whole versus vision for the city organization. For the community as a whole, I have to admit that I don't have a set vision that I came to Bakersfield with for this community. I wanted to really listen and understand this community makeup and listen to its leaders, listen to its members, its residents, and understand more about, the character of Bakersfield. What I would suggest, over the last 2 months plus, the homework I did in advance, I'm still listening and distilling what the vision for the future should be. But my early thinking already is that, this is a community that is in transition from being, a rural ag-oriented suburban community to becoming an urban metropolitan area. And my vision would be, we don't lose the small town feel of the friendliness and the personal approach to things and the, get it done attitude that comes with that. But we do need to think about, what are 21st century services that most residents expect today, and how do we, leverage our economy of scale of being a larger community and think about, we need to plan differently, and we need to resource differently, and we need to provide services differently to a broader population base. And we need to think about our downtown urban core that needs to be built out, and there needs to be some renewal there. I think as a community, my observations are that we have made investments in growing the community geographically and population numbers. And just in a regular life cycle of a community, you need to, as that has occurred, then come back and spend some attention on some of your older neighborhoods, making sure that revitalization occurs over time there as well. And so I would see, our community, having some more sophisticated services and planning options to them while continuing to maintain that really friendly environment. Now, let me speak more on the city organization side, though, because that's where I do have a much more clear vision of where I want the organization to go. It's an organization that in many aspects has been organized and resourced and trained as a sort of mid-sized suburban community. And we need to take our professional staff and how we're organized and the policies and protocols, as well as some of our technology tools, and modernize to become a city organization that can support a large metropolitan community. To me, that looks like professionalization. I want to focus on our employees becoming very highly skilled professionals. They need to spend time in their professional associations. I want to pursue best practices in the field. I think any best practice that we may observe from another state or from another city, of course, we're going to need to adjust and tweak to make that fit here. But if we're not going out and getting the best ideas that are already out there, then I think, we're spending a lot of time reinventing wheels. And so I'm going to pursue best practices, helping the staff get professional training and participate in professional associations. And then I think also increased use of data analytics and performance management. I think that's, I've found it to be a very valuable tool, let alone it's, a national trend that, cities should be using more good data to make decisions. And I think that's something that needs to be built out over time. I think the organization actually has to have the capacity to support some of these new initiatives. And so you need to pace yourself. But I see us building out a professional workforce that uses data and best practices increasingly. And then there are some key opportunities to modernize some of our processes, get rid of some of our paper in the organization, as well as just find some efficiencies and streamline some of our processes to just be a bit more effective.
No, I was going to ask a question next about disrupting the apple cart maybe and innovation to the city, but you did a lot of conversation about that already, about the ability to instill innovation and transformation into the city culture from the little sleepy mid-sized town to a top 10 city in the state of California.
I think that's a good summary, yes.
So that is a pretty large plate.
Yeah, just, we'll have it all done in 12 months, right?
Okay. I was looking at, you came out last week with your observations about the city budget and its outlook, and you mentioned the whole transition was kind of your entire, I think, message of what you brought to the council that day, and about the challenges the city faces. And you're talking a little bit about, and I was asked this too, you were brought in to move us into the 21st century, and it certainly sounds like you have already have that in your mindset. That's where we're going, and we're going to get there, and we're going to raise all the ships up, and we're all going to be the better for it. So, and you've mentioned some of your priorities. Do you think you've covered all your top priorities, the first 2 or 3 things that I have to get done to get us on that road to innovation and transformation?
I think some of the philosophical principles I've communicated, that we need to focus on professionalization, modernization. A key point that I did bring up in the budget introduction for council that is still a key component is just increasing our organizational capacity. And part of that is the Measure N and building up our police force, taking a look at some other key strategic positions that can relate to city council goals. And some of those support positions, even internally, they're not as tangible to the public to feel, more cops on the streets, but having the technology resources and the financial, folks on the back end to support these employees. I just think overall building the capacity of the organization in straight numbers of employees, but then beyond that, then taking the folks that we do have and saying, how do we make sure they have good training and good professional opportunities? And my vision in this too is that as we modernize, as we, for example, use technology, we should be able to take some employees that are right now filing papers, and we can redeploy those same folks to be doing a higher level function and thinking about, things that have a real return on value and return on investment instead of just processing. So I think some of these initial investments in the organizational's capacity will then lead to us being able to do more and different things that have more meaning and impact to the community.
Yeah, you did bring up in your conversation the importance of human capital, and that you're building your house first. That's going to be the foundation of what you want to do moving forward, is improving and developing whatever strengths you have with whatever needs the city has and opportunities for the future. So do you have you want to go into that any more deeply about the human capital component, or I think you have it pretty well covered?
I think I've addressed the human capital perspective, just that, the most valuable resource that the city organization has is our employees. They're going to be the ones doing the work and coming up with the better ideas and finding ways to, give better service to the community. If I just remembered something that I'll shift gears back to, just sort of priorities that I've heard about and haven't mentioned yet. And one of those is just quality of life. I mean, of course, we have public safety. We have increasing our organizational capacity, but economic development and quality of life are two areas that definitely need, more attention. Economic development and economic recovery coming out of COVID is going to be a big piece of our work. And then I think also just quality of life. And what I continue to hear from residents is that, we're happy that we've been able to create nice amenities in this community with some of our capital dollars, but we also just want to have, lower crime. We want to have clean streets and clean sidewalks. We want to have attractive gateways and entrances to the community. So these quality of life issues, I think, need to, have a heightened focus moving forward in some of our investments. And I don't think that's a particular criticism of some of the prior investments. Maybe it was just the moment in time at where the city was at and what they needed to invest in. But I think with some of these new measure and resources, as we build our organizational capacity, we need to start focusing on how does that improve quality of life for the residents.
I totally agree. I think we were big advocates for that when we supported Measure N, that the quality of life had been allowed to slide a little bit, and we really needed to address some of those just attributes that make you proud. The streets are clean, the parks look nice, all the little amenities that maybe going forward are going to be more and more important with the coronavirus and being able to do things. And maybe you're not going to travel as much, so we're going to have to stay closer to home. And the change of that whole culture and how our city addresses life moving forward, I think is
fair enough.
Much different than we have now. Anyway, that's it. I think, on that end, I think our conversation pretty well had the questions. I think you've done a good job today showing us your vision for where you want to take the town, how you want, and how you're going to build the rebuilding or remodeling of city government to get where you think it should be. So I'd really like to say thank you for your time today. Your candid comments, I think, are pretty right on, and it gave you people, since you haven't had the chance to run around the community and make all the Rotary meetings and all the Kiwanis meetings and glad hand like a new person in town normally would do. I mean, it's been very tough for you, I know. we're all in self quarantine just about, and being able to run your business and meet people and get input from the community is very tough to do in the new world order. But I want to thank you. Yep.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. And to your point, I was excited, and I did anticipate being, out in the community a lot more in my first few months. The way I approach governance is that it is important to be accessible, and it is important to be out there. And so I do look forward to, meeting folks down the road. But it has been tough, and so opportunities to just share some of my thinking and get feedback are really valuable. So I'm happy to have been with you today.
Well, thank you. We probably talked on the video chat 5 or 6 hours now, but we haven't had the opportunity to. I guess you don't even shake hands anymore. You got to elbow
No,
bump
you're
or
right.
keep your distance, and however we do that moving forward. But again, I want to thank you for your time today. And to our audience, I want to say thank you for watching Conversations That Matter. We hope you found our efforts to be beneficial and improve your knowledge about what's going on at the city of Bakersfield. If you have any comments, you can visit our website at kerntaxpayers.org and under Contact Us, and we'd like to hear what you think about this. And once again, Christian, thank you very much. And for the
Thank
audience,
you.
thank you for watching.
Stay safe out there.